Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. Before I jump into our second segment, let me remind you guys, go ahead and check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/officialmlgsec2. If you ever miss anything here at MLGWCS, Rules of Engagement, Play of the Days, whatever it is, go ahead, check out the YouTube page. Everything we do is there for free in 1080p quality. Our second segment of the day is going to be a ZVP between Bales and Vibe, talking about Zerg unit composition changes and transitionings throughout the game. First, we're going to talk about building up a Protoss Death Ball, then how to counter a Protoss Death Ball, and also how to properly base race in Zerg versus Protoss. So we'll start the stream play off at the 8-minute mark, and we're going to talk about building up the Protoss Death Ball for the first stage, and that's from Bale's point of view. And as we see here, he's first going for the Colossi tech, which of course is always a great tech for the Death Ball. And then as we go forward here, his vision, he's going to be doing some War Prism harass. And as he comes in here with this War Prism, he's going to see, okay, my opponent has a Spire. Well, let's go ahead and get double Stargate, right? Because that way, well, I'm going to do some harass in the main, try to kill some drones and whatnot. But the idea is he's either going to switch to Mutas or he's going to go Roach Corruptor. This many Roaches is probably Roach Corruptor, right? In that case, the ideal composition is Colossi Void Ray. And the goal here, it's not about a 7-minute mark, you don't have a third yet. That's not ideal, but the most important thing we build up the Death Ball isn't to defend and take expansions as fast as possible. And if the Zerg player is making this many Roaches, it's totally fine to take a little bit of a later third. The most important thing, if you're ever going to do this Protoss Death Ball strategy, is to never lose any of your key important tech units. Now, ideally you would have a third base, ideally things would be better, but the focus is always not on your economy or bases, but on not losing any of your key units. Now those would be the Sentries, the Colossi, the Void Rays, the Templar, any of those type of units. Now the most simplest, easiest Death Ball for you guys out there who just want to win a lot of PV anything, so you want to keep it super simple, just make a lot of Colossi and make a lot of Void Rays, and that's a super strong Death Ball. You just turtle up, once you get 200 food, you move out and you attack. As long as you can, in all the earlier engagements, if they attack, you lose some gateway units here and there. Just don't lose any of those Colossi, don't lose any of the Void Rays, and eventually your army will get untouchable. So that's the focus here. He's keeping his army where he can defend both the ramps. He's being very heads up, and he's going to first do that in Phoenix because he thought there might have been a, oops, that's a fake one. He's heading his Phoenix because he thought there might be a muted transition. But then he saw the Corruptors, and now he's going to go and switch over to Void Rays momentarily, I would think. At least now he sees the Corruptors, so hopefully in a moment, there you go. Canceling the Phoenix is going to Void Rays. So that's the ideal composition as a general Protoss Death Ball. Get as many Colossi and Vortis as possible. And from the Zerg point of view, it's really important to realize is that this is a situation that a lot of Zerg players get frustrated from Vibe's position. Because they're like, I've got, I may not be that much head in workers, but I've got 3 bases taking a 4th. His third is just started, if at all. I should automatically win this game just from having more bases. But that's not entirely true. The one thing about this composition is, when you see Vibe's close to being maxed, and if you look at army supply, it's actually almost dead even for army value. So, if Vibe sits around on this composition, gets 30 more food and just sits around, he's going to have a useless army. Roaches and Corruptors are terribly cost-inefficient units as the Protoss builds up a much stronger force. So, what's very important is first, he tries to see if he can trade off units. He says, if we trade, I've got economy, I can replace my units. So if we don't trade, I'll hit max and be unable to improve. So first, he's seeing if he can trade units. And that's why he's coming up here. But, if you take a look at the position, it's a situation where if he tries to charge up here, what's going to happen? Right? Well, it's pretty simple. Force fields will come down right here. Half its Roaches will die. The Corruptors will all die to the 2 Void Rays and Phoenix and do nothing. And basically all these Zerg units will be X'd out of existence and he's going to kill nothing. Because the Corruptors are useless because they're Corruptors against Void Rays. And then the Roaches aren't going to be useful because they're all attacking from one direction. And there's so much depth to them. Right? If you draw a line, there's so much depth. And if there's this much depth to the Roach army, it's very easy for the Protoss to segment it with force fields. Now, ideally, the Roach army is going to be much more spread out. It's going to be a situation where you have some Roaches here, and then you have some Roaches around there, something like that. And from those positions, you're in a situation where they can't hit the great force fields, and you have so many angles. But from this angle, he wouldn't do very well. So he can't find a way to trade down units. And as a Zerg player, even if you're ahead in economy, against the Protoss Deathball, or the Protoss who's looking like they want to make a Deathball, if you can't find a way to trade down units without just being totally slaughtered, you have to keep teching. So that's why, if we can see, Vibe has this Infestation Pit. He built this around the, I think, the 1230 mark. And he could go to Hive and go for Vipers, and he's actually going to Hive to leave that open. But he could also go to Mutas. Those are really the only two late game things you're thinking about as Zerg. I mean, Swarm Host can be good too, but you either need to have Mass Air or you need to have Vipers. You need to have one of those two things. And Vipers can go with Swarm Host, they can go with Hydrodus, they can go with whatever you want, but you need to have either Mass Air or Vipers. And so Vibe is choosing to Mass Air out. He's transitioning, we can see that. 12 meters on the way, or 12 meters already built. He's got some Corruptors helping against the Phoenix as well. And he's leaving the option open to transition to adding in Vipers later in the game. And now this is where we're in a situation where if you're going to transition to Mass Air, you have to realize that even though Mutas are... people say Mutas are good against Void Rays. The thing is, they're not actually that good in a heads-up fight against Void Rays. They're roughly even, cost for cost against Void Rays. And if you add in Guardian Shield, you add in the Stalker support, you're not going to beat this army heads up. So you always want to go for the base race as Mutas. If your opponent moves down the map, you counterattack. The Mutas kill the probes, the Mutas kill the Nexuses. The Corruptors stay between the Mutas and the Phoenix. The Phoenix come back just to ward those Phoenix off so the Phoenix can't pick off the Mutas using their superior range. And notice, as you're base racing, what's an important thing to do? An important thing to do is, one, use Speedings and Roaches. Those are very important because those will help you kill buildings very quickly. While Mutas, you can see they can slowly kill the probes. The Speedies and the Roaches are really going to help you take down the buildings, and it's a base elimination, so it's going to result in your win. The second thing you want to do that's super important as well is you want to make sure you expand all over the map. Alright? And the goal here is first seeing, can you beat this army? He realizes he can't beat this. Alright, he was thinking about picking away at the army, and he realized, I can't beat this army, so I'm going to have to base race him. As a Zerg player for base racing a Protoss, there's a couple basic things to keep in mind. Now the first thing is to realize that, okay, if I can't beat his army, but I'm killing all his bases, I can kill his buildings first, assuming I build a whole bunch of buildings across the map. So what does a Protoss have to do knowing that they can't kill the buildings before the Zerg can? Just because the Zerg has full map vision with Overlords, they can build extractors everywhere, they have a lot more bases. In general, the Protoss won't kill the buildings as fast as the Zerg will. So what the Protoss is going to do is they're going to basically kill the Zerg mining bases, and then they're going to find a base and just camp it. So they're going to say, you know what, let's just take, let's say, like this base, and we're just going to occupy this. And the Protoss army will be over here camping their base, and they'll be stuck in this location, right? That's where Protoss will be stuck in. From a Zerg perspective, right, the best way to react to that is what you want to do is you want to say, okay, if he leaves that base, I can go kill it. And also, if he leaves that base to kill one of my bases, I want to make sure that I always have a base up. So, you expand everywhere. You're going to take bases as far apart from each other as possible. Normally, in a normal game, you want to expand close to your other bases, right? But you see where I'm drawing all these money signs of where a Zerg might want to... Oh, this one's kind of weird. Where a Zerg might want to expand? These are all locations where in the base race, you expand as far away from each other. And the reason why is all about time. If the Protoss army says, okay, we're pissed off, we want to go kill this base, right? That's fine. You evacuate the drones, lose that hatchery. And then if the Protoss wants to kill another base, they have to walk a long distance, right? Wherever they go, it's going to be a long distance away. And during that long distance, you can be having time where they're marching up to the top base, you're mining minerals from the left side bases to rebuild this hatchery they just killed. You're counterattacking and killing their base. Time is money in the base race situation, and money is what wins the game of Starcraft 2. So in the base race, expand everywhere as far apart from each other as possible, as long as you have the mobility advantage, which is why this is the Zerg style in the base race, because you have the Mutalists, the Speedlings, you have the mobility advantage. Your opponent can't just segment off a few units to send everywhere, because you'll run down those units and kill them. Whereas if the Protoss tries to expand everywhere, you can just segment off small groups and attack them, and unless they can split their army in 4 different places, which if they do, then you just send your whole army to kill one, you'll be totally fine. So getting back in the game, you can see that's exactly what Vibe is going to do. is that he says, okay, I can't take the easy win out and beat this army. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick off the mothership quarters because it can be annoying with photon overcharge, time warps, and whatnot. It could recall back to this nexus, and then that could be annoying, so make sure I pick that off. Whereas, of course, Bales didn't want to recall back until he kills the main of the Zerg as well. So it wasn't like that was necessarily a mistake not to recall. And then he's doing the same thing, right? He's building the hatchery up here, he's building the hatchery here, and he's building the hatchery here. Needless to say, this is always going to end the same way. Protoss is going to realize, okay, wait a minute. My army is stronger than the Zergs, but I'm going to lose all my buildings. So I kind of just have to find a place to build Nexus, and then just build the Nexus and then sit on it, right? So he's choosing the Zerg main. And then he's going to realize, okay, I'm sitting on a Nexus with 3 drones, but my opponent is going to be mining from, you know, this base, this base, this base, this base. He just has a lot of bases he built everywhere, and Protoss has to GG out. So it's quite a simple theory about base racing. It tends to favor the Zerg if it's played well. So quick kind of recap a couple things in this game. As a Protoss player, as you're trying to build a death ball, the focus isn't on expanding as fast as possible, killing the Zerg units. No. The focus is always on keeping your key units alive in every engagement. If you do that, even if your economy is small, it doesn't matter if you don't have to replace many units. Right? I mean, if you have a 200 fruit army, you can have no economy, just never lose a unit, you'll be fine. Alright, so keep those key important units alive, the Colossi and the Void Rays. Then also, from the Zerg perspective, what you want to do is, even if you have an economic advantage, that's not enough to guarantee victory. You want to continue teching. If Vibe just stuck on Roach Corruptor, he could have 6 bases. He's not going to beat Colossi and Void Rays. He's just not going to. The important thing is he kept teching. He went to Hive to unlock some options there, and then he did the Muta switch. So either one of those 2 options is fine. He actually chose to do both, so we could have multiple options depending on how the Protoss played it out. But very, very important for Zerg, always keep teching. Never think you're going to win just because you're that base up. And then also, as a final reminder, base races tend to favor Zerg if they're played well. Zerg player, if you expand everywhere, you're going to be happy. Base races favor Zerg over Protoss. You never run a base race at Terran, that's another rule, but in Zerg versus Protoss, the base races usually favor the Zerg. So after this segment, we'll take a short break and be right on to our third segment.